Welcome back, and thank you again for joining us. It's rather unfortunate that we have to still talk about this issue because it continues to rear its ugly head. Attacks on foreign nationals living in the south of Durban are the latest spats in these incidents. It is alleged that these attacks come after King Goodwill Zwelithini gave a speech at a moral regeneration event in Pongola last week, which alluded to some anti-foreigner sentiments. Well, following this incident, more and more people have come out to share the same opinion. To talk to us more on this matter, we're joined by Professor Pitika Ntuli. Prof, always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for availing yourself.
Thank you, and to the viewers.
Professor, I just want to explore what seems to be a discrepancy in anti-foreigner sentiments in South Africa, in that those who are more fairer skins, perhaps Chinese nationals, are not subjected to xenophobia. There are China malls, a dime a dozen, and we flock to them willingly. We don't go there to burn anything down, but the foreigners who have more melanin in their skin, or who are darker, who look more like us, those are the ones that we target. Is this a form of self-loathing, do you think? What's going on here?
I think there's a lot of self-loathing. We're talking about xenophobia. It's not xenophobia, it's afrophobia. It's also very unfortunate that many of us who have spent our lives in exile, we spend our lives being protected by the people that we are attacking. And the people in high-profile positions who probably have not lived anywhere, encountered any of these people, it will come up and articulate these things. And it's also very unfortunate that we have no historical memory. Maybe it's because people who lived in exile, we don't talk about what actually happened there.
But whose responsibility is it to educate South Africans about those ties that bind, historical connections that we have, even current bilateral relations that we have with our African continents, and that symbiotic relationship, perhaps trade exchanges? Whose responsibility is it to educate South Africans that we have more that actually unites us than that which divides?
I think the task of intellectuals and the type of higher education institution, but also particularly the type of by government, because the very people who are in government actually today, many of them live their lives in exile. Some of them are even children, in exile, and we need to do that. The AU Charter for 2063, agenda, it placed on the agenda the question of African cultural, renaissance that the Department of Arts and Culture, under the leadership of the Minister Nati Mthethwa, has. That's why next month is focused on Africa Month, and his view is that we are Africans. Carried in those three words, we are Africans, it begins in a sense to address this. Yesterday, the reference committee was there, including people from Congo, Brazzaville, Mali, Salif Keita were around in here addressing these particular things. It's good that somebody, at least in government, is taking this thing kind of head on to say we cannot continue to loathe ourselves. We have to define who we are, and once we define who we are, then perhaps we'll be less intolerant.
And I think if you define who we are, you'll find that you've got Malawian blood and Zambian ancestors or this and that, because those borders were created, they came about with our colonial masters, as it were.
Yeah, what happens is that, in my in art studio, I've got two people who came from Malawi. And when I have a discussion with them, their knowledge of what is in, I said, how do you know all this knowledge? They said, no, my grandfather came in and worked here and all of these things, got married to this family. So we are related to people almost half the continent. And yet once you cross the border, we say you are from Africa, because we have actually become the 53rd state of the United States of America.
But we cannot neglect the economic factors that contribute towards such violence. We're battling for scarce resources, and if I can use a very crude, perhaps, marketing analogy, if these things happen in lower LSMs, where people are battling for resources, where perhaps in a hospital you are finding that there are 50 women ahead of you who are going to deliver Baragwanath, and they're all from cross borders, and you're South African and you're having to wait your turn and you're frustrated because as it stands, things are already dire, but they're being made worse and exacerbated by your brothers and sisters from outside. We can't neglect the socio-economic factors.
Yeah, I think government is actually addressing that. The revised immigration laws, they're a bit, kind of tighter now, because the traffic, of people, including drugs and all other forms of criminality, contributed, towards the tightening of these immigrations. But then the sensitivity to there are people who come from repressive regimes who are coming in here. And they end up here. We end up maybe keeping them in camps and so on and so forth. Some of us feel very particularly painful, because we had gone through those kind of experiences. Maybe in other countries where a government didn't want you, but the people wanted you. Here, the government wants us, but it's some people that do not want the people.
Prof, we're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid, but I have a sneaking suspicion that we will continue this debate in one time or another, because as you have mentioned, we are approaching Africa Month in May, Africa Day as well. So we will continue to unpack such stories and similar ones in just a moment. Of course, don't forget, Sam Marshall is focusing on World Autism